We are really glad that you're here, and we're going to start with a opening story today. So I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker and also turn the volume up a little bit.
Wait on the volume. We're good? All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Ted Milu, and I've been invited here today to talk about my experience as a multilingual speaker. But first and foremost, before we get into any stories, I'd like to extend my gratitude towards the Matheson History Museum and, of course, to Dr. Laura Gonzales, without which I wouldn't even have the opportunity to speak here tonight. So if you guys are willing, can we just give them a round of applause, please? Thank you. All right. Words cannot express how excited I am that multilingual speakers have been given a platform here today, a platform to celebrate and discuss language, advocate for justice, and bring awareness to issues that aren't typically highlighted. I'm also happy that I've been given my own chance to share my personal experiences with the subject of language. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Ted Milu. I'm 17 years old. I'm attending UCF in the fall, and I'm a Kenyan immigrant. Oh, you got some UCF guys? All right, cool, cool. And I'm a Kenyan immigrant. So Kenya is a nation that is home to 67 established languages. 67. Just by show of hands, does anybody know anyone who can speak 67 languages? No? I didn't think so. So in such a linguistically and culturally diverse environment, communication can be tricky, but it's of the utmost importance. As a result of this, in Kenya, we have two lingua franca. A lingua franca being a type of bridge language that's used to connect individuals in a country that has multiple native tongues. So, for example, in Kenya, we have Swahili. In Senegal, you'd have Wolof. In Angola, Portuguese, Cameroon, French, and so on and so forth. I'm sure many of you guys have heard of Swahili, or at least know the phrase Hakuna Matata if you've watched The Lion King. You got any Disney fans? No? All right. What most of you might not know, however, is that Swahili is a language that around 15% of which is actually comprised of Arabic words. In fact, the name of the language Swahili comes from the Omani Arabic word Sawahili, meaning of the coast, providing an accurate description of Swahili's creators. You see, prior to colonialism, Arabic and South Asian traders would frequent the coast of East Africa, some of whom who even settled down and created small cities. The combination of local African and Arabic, foreign Arabic that occurred in the region birthed Swahili. Today, that same Swahili has grown past the small East African coast and is the official language of 5 nations and has over 220 million speakers today. To me, however, the most impressive part of Swahili isn't the massive breadth of its domain or the countless speakers it boasts. Its most remarkable quality lies in what's kind of unremarkable: its ability to do what literally all language does: bring people closer together. Growing up as an immigrant 8,000 miles from my home country, it's only natural that sometimes I felt isolated. The only other Kenyan children in the area were zoned to different schools, and recognizing this, my parents made a commitment to reaching out to other Kenyans and being part of a community. It was in these communities that I got to witness Kenyans of all different types of ethnic backgrounds, ages, and genders. It's not just speaking in Swahili, but uniting through it, telling jokes, stories, and even debating in the language. It's also in these communities that my own proficiency of the language was tried and tested. I can still remember how the adults would always respond to my English hello with the Swahili sasa or barigani, which means how are you and how have you been. As far as the elders in the community, trying to speak to them and access their deep reservoir of cultural and social wisdom was pretty much impossible in English. Any attempt I made was met with a blank stare. The same was true during family trips back home to Kenya, especially with elders who hadn't been fortunate enough to receive English lessons, let alone go to school. On the other end of the spectrum, my younger relatives who were set to but hadn't started learning English yet couldn't communicate with me either. This is where Swahili, our lingua franca, comes into play. For me, Swahili was and still is a bridge to other people. The sphere of individuals I interacted with was no longer limited to just those with a traditional education, as it would have been had I only had English at my disposal. Instead, I could teach my cousins how to play American games, and they could teach me African ones. For the first time, we could make each other laugh, discuss cartoons, and talk about what we wanted to be when we grew up. As far as elders go, I could listen. I could listen to instructions on how to help out around the house. I could listen to directions to where my other relatives' houses were or where the market is so I can grab them some vegetables. I could listen to stories about how my grandparents grew up and how things were different back in their times. When I reflect on my own views and experience with language, the words of famous linguist Noam Chomsky echo in my mind. I believe he put it best when he once said, quote, "A language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is." These words perfectly encapsulate how I feel. It's through multilingualism that I was given the unique ability to see into different worlds and connect them. For that, I am forever grateful. Thank you all. All right. We should, and our next speaker is Mr. Robert Mounts. So
I don't think I could do that at 17. But boy, what a cloud tonight. Don't you know, we have two city commissioners here, Commissioner Sacco, Commissioner Willett. We have the former mayor. Please don't tell the fire marshal. Don't sit in the aisles. I'm Robert Mounts, and I'm president of the Matheson History Museum. Caitlin Hof-Mahoney here is our outstanding executive director. I'm personally interested in this new exhibit as my wife, Unsuk Park, who is here in the audience, has long worked as a Korean language interpreter for a number of national language service providers. She has many interesting stories to tell, which I don't have time to say. But at the Matheson Museum, very importantly, we strongly believe, I'm going to stamp my foot like my old political science professor used to do, in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we are proud to provide a safe and welcoming place for free speech, for academic freedom, historic factual perspective, and truth-telling. Immigrant inclusion requires us to think about languages other than English and to listen to the stories that people carry through their languages and their cultures. We are here. The exhibit highlights stories from people who speak multiple languages in North Central Florida. Through visual collages that centralize cultural images, We Are Here illustrates the immigration journeys of our North Central Florida community through stories that hold power in multiple languages. These stories include examples of successes, struggles, hopes, injustices, and dreams of a more inclusive and just community. This is important local history in the making. Some of our exhibits are 50 years old, like this one, but this is here and now. This exhibition was created in partnership with the Matheson, with Language Access Florida, Rural Women's Health Project, Gainesville Immigrant Neighbor Inclusion Initiative, and U.S. Center for the Humanities and the Public Sphere with funding and support from the Humanities Fund. The Matheson, as you may know, is a nonprofit organization. We're not run by the city, the county, or the state. We depend entirely on donations, memberships, and grants and corporate sponsorships. If you like what we're doing here, please see Willett at the front desk. Sign up to be a member of the Matheson, get notices of our future programs, and thank you, God, for being here tonight. Next is Caitlin Hof-Mahoney.
All right. I'm going to keep my remarks very brief because there are a lot of people here to talk today who have a lot of very interesting things to say. So I'm not going to take up too much time. But I just want to take care of some of the housekeeping. As Bob mentioned, my name is Caitlin. I'm the executive director here at the Matheson History Museum. And we are really thrilled to have this new exhibit here. So I want to thank some of our grant sponsors for the exhibit and our programs. Visit Gainesville, Alachua County, the City of Gainesville, and the State of Florida Division of Cultural Affairs. I also want to thank the people who made this exhibit possible. Laura, Valentina, Robin, and Ethan all helped to bring this to the Matheson and create this wonderful experience that we're able to share this evening. So I just want to personally thank each and every one of them, and also to Vic, who got wrangled into helping with this and was our painter extraordinaire. The color of the walls in the gallery would not be there without his help. I also wanted to share an exciting update through our ongoing partnership with Language Access Florida and share that we now have a Spanish translation of this exhibit in the main gallery about the Great Southern Music Hall. So that is available on the wall in the front corner of the room. So I encourage you to take a look at that as well while you're here this evening. So that is everything that I had to share. So I'm going to welcome Valentina and Laura to come tell us more about the exhibit.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Caitlin. And I'm so overwhelmed, Ted. That story, you really outdid yourself. And I think we should clap for you again. I'm so excited and grateful that everyone's here today. We have something prepped to say, but I just have to speak from the heart and say this whole thing, I feel like it's a time where our communities in general are under attack. And we wanted this to be a space to breathe together, to enjoy some good company, and to really think critically about the fact that if we want to provide justice for everyone, we have to provide justice for the most marginalized in our communities. And that's really the point of this exhibit. Thank you. Language justice would not happen without racial justice. And I think one of the big goals of the exhibit and of our work is to highlight that and invite everyone to join us in making that connection consistently so that it's heard, as we have learned from many activists before us. So that's the big point. We're gonna just introduce you a little bit, tell you a little bit about the exhibit, but I do have to give a shout out to everyone who showed up. My extended family is here, and that is my chosen family from all over. And I'm so deeply, deeply grateful. Okay.
Muchas gracias, Robert and Kaylin, y una cálida bienvenida a todos. Esta exposición ha estado en proceso de creación por más de 2 años. Durante este tiempo, hemos tenido la oportunidad de entrevistar a más de 60 miembros de nuestra comunidad en el norte central de la Florida, aprendiendo más sobre los retos y las experiencias que nuestros vecinos experimentan en nuestra ciudad.
Thank you, Caitlin and Robert, and welcome everyone. This exhibit has been in the making for over 2 years. During that time, we've had the chance to interview over 60 community members from North Central Florida, all of whom speak languages other than English, about the different challenges and the experiences that our neighbors have as they navigate our city.
As immigrants continue facing attacks while trying to build a life in Florida, we wanted this exhibit to show not only the pain that our community faces, but also what brings us joy. We want this exhibit to show, through visual stories, that language means much more than words. Language is connection, language is culture, language is joy.
A pesar de que los inmigrantes siguen siendo atacados mientras tratan de formar su vida en la Florida, nosotras queríamos que esta exposición demuestre no solo el dolor que nuestra comunidad enfrenta día a día, sino también todo lo que nos trae alegría. Nuestra meta es que esta exposición demuestre, por medio de las historias visuales, que el lenguaje significa mucho más que las palabras. El lenguaje es nuestra conexión, el lenguaje es nuestra cultura, el lenguaje es nuestra felicidad. Okay, so as you walk through the exhibit, which is back here, you'll learn a little bit more about the linguistic history of Florida. You'll see that English is not the first language spoken in Florida at all. You will also see that collages that represent the stories of 10 community members in North Central Florida who speak over 15 languages.
Each collage has images of birds, plants, and landmarks that represent the various countries discussed in the collage. We co-created the collage with our community members, asking them about images that reminded them of their home countries and why these images were meaningful for them. All the collages include birds as a symbol of migration, making emphasis on the idea that migration is a natural act. Each collage also has a story written in the heritage language of the person who shared the story. You will need to touch and interact the collage to see the content in English. We hope this process helps you understand what it can be like for people who speak languages other than English in our community. You will also be able to listen to some excerpts of the interviews that we conducted and explore how a variety of languages sound like. Finally, you will also have a chance to add your own story to the exhibit. sharing what challenges you have experienced when speaking your language, and also what joy you have in your life because of your language.
So again, we want to thank the many community members, many of whom are here, and I'm so grateful for that, coming from far away, who shared their stories with us and made the exhibit possible. In the exhibit, we share stories about over 15 languages, but we acknowledge that there are so many others spoken throughout North Central Florida. So that's where the name We Are Here came from. We're eager to continue learning about the languages, to continue recognizing that the languages are here, along with the people, the communities, the music, the culture, everything that reflects us. As we learned, many of our immigrant neighbors don't have the luxury of sitting at home for an interview because we're working. Instead, in the middle of the pandemic, our community helped us by sharing their stories in restaurants, nail salons, in the car, on the phone, all across the city. We don't have time to sit down for 60 minutes and talk. We're doing other things. So thank you from the heart to the community for trusting us with your stories, for supporting this project. We hope that making your stories visible not only creates awareness about language diversity, but also triggers change and fosters a more inclusive and equitable Florida where everyone's voices are heard and valued. So now we're going to do just a few stories that are represented in the exhibit, a few stories from members of our community. So without further ado, I'm super excited to welcome Aisse, Kane, and Kaba to come talk to us about immigrant language access for immigrant businesses.
Hello. Bonsoir. Anisu. Menéndez. I'm Kaba. I'm from Ivory Coast.
And I'm Aisse Kane, and I'm from Senegal originally and grew up in France.
We are co-owner of Flavorful, a catering business.
Yeah, and actually, the food that you had today, I hope you enjoyed it because it was from us. And we're here tonight just to share a tidbit of our experience as immigrant business owners and how important language access is to us and how it relates to us.
All right, where can I start? Is there anyone that can translate French in English for me? No. All right, so we started Flavorful 2 years ago. And I can tell you that it was a bit challenging, even if we speak a little bit of English for me. And it was challenging because starting from looking for information on Google, you need to go on state's website or federal website to find the information that you need to start building your business legally. And all of this information, you can find them in French. Thanks God, we speak a little bit of English, as I said earlier, but it was still challenging. So people who do not speak French or English, sorry, are not able to find all of this information. They need someone that can help them, that can assist them to find the information they need to build their business. That was even the easy part because you can still look the information in your own language. But when you have to start calling administrations and all of that, it becomes more challenging because at this stage, you have to switch from one department to another. They will tell you, no, you are on the wrong one. You need to call this one. Sometimes you have to mail them document and information, and it's difficult. It's really difficult. And if you don't have someone that speaks your language to guide you, to assist you, it becomes something that you can give up because, like, finding the information, doing things legally, it's a challenge. I see.
So being a small business owners, as you probably know, is already a challenge in itself. Even if you're an English speaker, there are so many steps that you go through. So add to that layer, not being able to speak English. So like she said, thank God we studied English, but just like to give you an example, if you have a presentation, like an IT presentation, and they speak a totally different language that you don't understand, you can be lost. So same thing for someone that has English as a second language and you're trying to navigate through the steps and the federal agencies and all those resources that are available, but you're not quite aware because there's that barrier of language. And it was a challenge, but we overcome it because that's what we do. And we want to stress the need for translation in other languages for small businesses and other types of life. Like someone said earlier, you said it, language is more than that. It's your identity, it's your culture. So you need that to move on. And on the business side of it, there are so many talented immigrant community members, and their talents are inhibited by that barrier of the language, and we need to do something about that because that's what will give us strength and build a stronger community. And there are so many creative minds like my sister right here, that really the only challenge or the only barrier is the language. So we made it, and we made it thanks to a strong community and all our friends right here, but we just want to stress the importance of the language piece for the immigrant community, because like I said, there are so much talent within the community, and we need to take advantage of it. Thank you so much, Aisse and Awa. If you have not tried Flavorful, please help yourself when we go later, and then hire them for your next catering event. They're amazing. And I want to point out, we have amazing, amazing immigrant business owners here, including our caterers and our photographer who's walking around, Samuel Awi Gaboling from Ghana. So thank you so much. And I encourage you to seek them out, hire them for your work. Next, we're going to have two brilliant activists share about language justice for farm workers in Florida, Joashilia Jeanmarie and Asha Clarke.
Hi everyone, my name is Joashilia Jeanmarie. Bonjour tout le monde, bonsoir tout le monde. Mon nom est Joashilia Jeanmarie, je vais faire une présentation du programme de famille locale. Show of hands, how many people understood that? Woo! Okay. So that's why language access is important. It's important for the people in the space to feel like they're included in what's being presented, and it's important for them to contribute as well. I'll also let Asha introduce herself. Hi everyone, my name is Asha Clarke, and I come from a Jamaican immigrant family. I can't speak Patois Wagon, but I can't speak Patois in the same way that Joe can speak Creole, but still wanted to mention that for any Jamaicans in the crowd. Joe and I are both recent UF grads. We just graduated this past week. And I graduated with my degree in anthropology and have experience doing community work, both in Gainesville, working with Days for Girls. I learned Spanish. I got a certificate in Spanish for the professions. So I've also done community work in the Dominican Republic as well. If Joe, you want to talk a little bit more about your experience? Cool. Okay, so how many people know about Immokalee, Florida? Oh my God, that is great. Okay, so Immokalee, Florida is a immigrant town. Largely, most of the workers there, the largest industry is agricultural work. And for a really long time, Immokalee, Florida was impacted by really harsh and terrible conditions in farm work. And so from that, the early organizers and Immokalee farm worker organizers drew from the Haitian peasant movement in Haiti and built a coalition between Guatemalan, Mexican, and Haitian immigrants, which led to the Coalition of Immokalee Workers, which is one of the organizations that helped us today. So as time passed, unfortunately, participation of and inclusion of Haitian immigrants in those activism spaces has gone down, and it's a lot harder for Haitian Creole-speaking people to engage in community work. And so that is where the program started. Also, quick shout out, yesterday was Haitian Flag Day, so great stuff. So going into the program, we knew that we wanted to highlight Haitian Creole speakers in the community, and we also wanted to create a space where they felt invited to share their experiences and also have a conversation with an organization that took a lot of its history from it. And so in January, we had a workshop where we invited a bunch of Haitian immigrants to come, but also, Spanish-speaking folks in the community. It was fully accessible in both Creole and Spanish. I presented in Creole and Asha presented in Spanish. And some of the outcomes from that workshop are informing our work in the future. Yeah, so some of the highlights of our town hall include an interactive call and response thing where we went back and forth repeating both useful phrases that these agricultural workers could use in the field, as well as emergency phrases as well. And we had each phrase up on our PowerPoint in English, Haitian Creole, and in Spanish. So we would repeat one phrase in English, have them say it. They would all know how to say the Creole one, and then we try to have the whole group repeat the phrase in Spanish as well. Another highlight of the workshop was in terms of that town hall function. We played videos of events that recently happened in Immokalee, for example. Talking about Haitian Flag Day, there was an event where at the high school, or one of the big high schools in Immokalee, students were reprimanded for wearing their flags to make the connection between language justice and racial justice, as Dr. Gonzales so rightfully mentioned. And so the community, they were able to talk about that amongst each other. And I'm not sure that Joe touched on this enough, but they facilitated pretty much the entire event in Haitian Creole. And this is coming from a program that we planned out in English first and then translated. So if we could give Joe a round of applause for doing that, it was amazing. Yes, but they were all, again, totally in Creole, so language justice, again, they were all speaking in their native tongue. They're able to talk about these issues amongst each other and come to some conclusions about the next steps that they'd like to see that we're trying to do our best to implement. So one of those, because they loved that call and response interactive activity that we had so much, is that they were interested in English lessons. They wanted to be able to speak English, whether it was with their supervisors in the field or just generally. It's a good skill to have. And so our next steps going forward will be to facilitate community literacy programs, and excitingly enough, we just received word that we were awarded the Community Literacies Collaborative Grant, collaboratory grant. Sorry, I'm tripping over my words. And so that will go towards funding some of those English lessons that we hope to implement. And lastly, the goal of it isn't to necessarily teach people English. And one of the needs that we were responding to from the crowd was that people needed a space for advocacy, and part of that was feeling empowered in their language. And so part of that is giving, resource and access, more resources to local organizations and asking them to incorporate Haitian Creole language access. It's also giving, Haitian Creole speaking community members the tools that they need to navigate situations where they can't speak or they don't have someone who speaks Creole by either using a language access cards. And the last piece of our community literacy program is to build community where people feel like they can advocate for themselves and also draw from each other. I think one of the most powerful things that came out of that program was that people were expressing that they didn't feel a sense of community because those organizations had failed them in that way. And so hopefully by creating this small little class and also book club, we can create a sense of community and also empower people to move forward.
Organize.
Organize. Let's go. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joashilia and Asha, so much for sharing your work. I think what you're teaching us is that our immigrant communities have the creativity and the willpower to do this work, if we provide them more support, money, the support that is needed in the communities, that can go a long way. And to that end, in Gainesville and in Alachua County, we have been so privileged to have a lot of support from Alachua County, from the Rural Women's Health Project, from so many organizations who have really stepped up and emphasized the need for language access in the community. So with that, I would like to introduce Dr. Diedre Houchen, who will be telling us a little bit more about language access in Alachua County.
I do want to just start by saying that after those two young island women went, I have nothing else to say. I just want to take my stuff and go home. Nonetheless, hi, I'm Dr. Diedre Houchen. I am the Equity and Community Outreach Manager for Alachua County. I'm going to be brief, but I would start by saying that language, for me, in the last 2 years since I've been the equity manager at Alachua County, I stopped using government as a noun and started using governance as a verb, because that's my job and that's our job, is to govern this country together well. So the position that we're bringing on, which is an immigrant liaison and language access specialist, is really exciting and important for me to learn from. We've got, as you've heard, a number of refugee, migrant, other language than English speaking community members here in Alachua County. I don't know how to take care of them well unless we have people from those communities who teach us how to take care of them well, what their needs are, and that we as the government can communicate back to them in a language that they understand, recognize, and maybe even love, maybe a language that they love. So that's the first thing. It's really important that we, as those who are charged with leading the government, helping everyone in this world of governments, that we have the skills and the equipment to communicate to people, not just about essential services like emergencies, because that's usually what we think about, the emergencies, but about like going to the park on Saturday, or jobs, or any number of the facets of life that I'm coming to learn governance does, including roads and road signs. And we're looking forward to, in Alachua County, doing what we can to make that as inclusive. And for me, the synonym of inclusive is like functional and efficient, right? They're the same. So we need to make our community a little bit more functional and efficient for all the members, including what we send out, our signs, coming and talking to us, as well as learn how we can better advocate alongside our communities from other places, all of them. Okay, so that's what we're looking forward to doing, particularly around local food, around health equity, around the actual functioning of the county governance, around our community support services, and all the other things that we can dream up together. Our office is the SEEDS office, the Sustainability, Equity, Economic Development Strategy office. My colleague, Sean McClendon, is here somewhere with me, perhaps. In the back there. We're pretty cool. We like us. Come meet us and talk with us about ideas that you have. Thank you, and we're so grateful to be here with you tonight.
Thank you so much, Dr. Houchen, and thank you for your continued support. I next want to introduce you to Adriana Menéndez, who works with the Rural Women's Health Project and facilitates their access line, their crisis line, which they're getting a lot of traction on these days. So Adriana, if you're here.
Hi, everybody. Wow, being here is a different view. My name is Adriana Menéndez. I work for the Rural Women's Health Project. I manage Project Salud, which is a referral line and a helpline for in Spanish for the Spanish-speaking community. First of all, I would like to say that I am born and raised in Guatemala. I am practically a kind of new immigrant in this country. I have been here for a little more than 2 years. And my job consists in receive calls every day from the Spanish-speaking community. And I feel very attached to them. And I feel like many of the things that are happening to them is like it's happened to me as a new immigrant in this country. Most of them come and they call seeking for help. Although I will say a better way to explain it would be they come looking for somebody to listen because they have already called many other places. They have already reached to many other places, and the barrier of the language is not letting them go through. It's not letting them find what they are looking for and get the help that they are needing. So they are coming to Project Salud with all kind of different issues that they are having. But obviously, one of the main problems is the language. When you have a parent, which I'm sure most of you guys are a parent, so when they come to a school, they come to the country and they want to register their kid in school, or the kid is already in school. And their kid is having some kind of issue. It could be with transportation, it could be in the class, it could be an emotional problem, the kid could be being bullied by somebody else. The parent called to the school, and what is the message that they receive when somebody is not even answering? The first thing that they hear is a machine. That machine it has a message in English, which it doesn't even give you an option to say like, okay, dial 1 for this, dial 2 for this. If that's not any of the options, just stay in line. No, you have to choose something. The parent already tried to do that, and they were not able to communicate. They wouldn't even able to understand what was the message. Many times they have no idea if it was a person answering the phone or if it was just a machine. So then they come to us, and like I am very sorry with my colleagues, because I know that many times I am the one who bring very sad stories, very sad news. But that's what I receive from the people. That's the messages, that's the problems that they come with to the Project Salud line. So I want to give you an example of what people experience every day. I have the story of a mother who has a 5-year-old kid. When this happened, they had 1 month in the country. And she received a note from the teacher, from her little girl teacher, saying, student X is sleeping during the class. Student X is not following instructions. Student X don't speak English. I don't speak Spanish. I need her to learn English. How can somebody expect of a 5-year-old little kid who has been in this country for a month and only 2 weeks at school to already know other language? And that's just a tiny little example that I can give you of the problems that the community is having every day in something as basic and as needed as education for their children. Imagine you're having any kind of problem if you are not able to explain, to communicate, or the person that is the other side can just barely understand some of the things that you are saying. You cannot express what you are feeling. You cannot express the real message of what is happening to you. So I'm sorry that I came with kind of bad news, but this is what is happening every day in the community. This is what I see every day. And thank you for having me. Good night.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for your patience. I know it's a long program, but I think all of these stories are really, really important. So we have amazing community members who are going to come talk to us. They're from Guatemala. They speak an indigenous language called Canjobal. And part of the work they've done in the community is help us recognize that when we have immigrants from Latin America, we should not assume that we speak Spanish. There are many indigenous languages spoken throughout Latin America and across the world that also deserve recognition when we're talking about language access. So I'm going to do a little translation for them, and please welcome them. So they are representing Jesus Simón Pascual, Pablo Simón Pascual, Marcos Jacinto Simón Pascual de Guatemala. Pues empecé. ¿Tu nombre y de dónde?
Muy bien, buenas noches a todos. Me llamo Marvin Diego Simón. Estamos aquí en Florida. Nosotros es un gusto de estar acá con ustedes. Nosotros somos de Guatemala también. Tenemos en Guatemala hay variedades de culturas, de lenguas. Por eso, con la intención que nosotros venimos acá es que tenemos un dialecto que se llama Canjobá, porque sabemos que en el mundo hay diversidad en culturas. Entonces, Guatemala contiene como 22 grupos. Entonces, sabemos, entonces, en cada territorio del mundo hay diferentes dialectos. Entonces, acá, como es, vamos a hablar. Entonces, solamente en español.
I'm going to try to interpret. So, oh, you can't hear? Oh, sorry. Okay, perfect. So he's here from Guatemala. In Guatemala, they speak over 22 languages, and they speak a language called Canjobal. He says, when we come here to the US and only English is spoken, our Canjobal gets sort of forgotten and lost.
Bueno, buenas tardes a todos o buenas noches. Yo me llamo Marcos Jacinto Juan Pascual. Yo soy de Guatemala, pero a mí me alegro de conocer toda la gente. Bueno, bueno, a mí me gusta conocer toda la gente cuando ellos estaban hablando. Es como que mi oído está cerrado, no entienden cómo ellos hablan inglés. Y yo tengo un dialecto. Bueno, yo tengo un dialecto. Sí, es como que un niño que no entiende. Es como así estaba yo escuchando cuando ellos están hablando de inglés. Es como que mi oído es como que no escucho más cuando ellos aplauden, entonces yo voy atrás. Ok, gracias.
She didn't catch much. Thank you. Muchas gracias. He's saying that he really enjoyed listening to everyone, but when everyone is speaking in English, he doesn't really understand. He's like a child who doesn't really understand, but he's still very excited to hear from everyone. And when people clap, he goes ahead and claps because it's the joy in the room.
Sí, hola, muy buenas noches a todo general. Pues yo me llamo Jesús Simón Pascual, soy de Guatemala y pues estamos aquí alegre y contento de ver, conocer a toda gente diferentes. Entonces, ahorita estamos aquí para conocer y saber diferentes tipos de idioma y muchas veces nosotros uno habla inglés y otro se- con nosotros pues solo hablo dos idiomas como español y canjobán y como Guatemala se dice bueno, que mucho idioma o dialecto y si uno habla canjobán. Ahorita voy a decir en español en canjobán y creo que pero le voy a decir hola Ted Watch Calacul. Hay Haití Schwan saludar y en parte hay un tío pues quien sale de Milu que me sale pues no sé si me entendieron pero sí entonces gracias a todos es alegre estar acá conocer de diferentes personas.
Muchas gracias a ustedes. Nosotros también estamos muy alegres de que estén aquí acompañándonos. So I'm just saying we're very grateful that they're here with us as well. And they were saying that he wanted to share some of his language Canjobal with all of us today. And so I'm saying we're very grateful. And we are very grateful. ¿Quieren decir algo? No. ¿Sí? Okay. Okay. Okay, one question. Okay, he's going to tell me and I'm going to explain. Okay, he's going to say 3 words in his language and somehow I'm going to say them in English. Okay. Okay, he's going to talk his language and then Spanish. Okay, listo.
Chesuelo algo diferente calhili. Ok. Ahorita eso es lo que dije. Eso es lo que dije. Me alegro conocer toda la gente y lástimo que ellos no lo conozco, pero a mí me alegro mucho por invitarme. Eso es lo que hablen de mi dialecto.
He said he's very happy to meet everyone from so many different places and very grateful to be here. Muchas gracias. Okay, so we are getting towards the end, and then you can actually see the exhibit and eat more food and stuff. Okay, I have a few announcements. This is a space of celebration, but there's also a lot of activist work happening here, and we have a lot of resources. We have cards provided by the Rural Women's Health Project in the back that say, I speak, and there's a space to talk, to say what language you speak. And it says in English, I have a right to receive language access in my language, and that card can be presented by any immigrant community member who doesn't speak English. You can present it at organizations that receive federal funding and let them know that you have a right, because they receive federal funding, to receive information in your language. So if you know immigrants who do not speak English, please take some of those cards and share them with the community. Right now, there is so much work happening. People are getting stopped. People are getting, there's just so much happening. So please exercise your right to not answer questions, and please spread this word. Exercise your right to not answer questions. If someone asks you if you have documents or not, you have a right not to say that. You have a right not to answer. I am not a lawyer. I don't know much, but I can tell you that much. Please pass out those cards, give them out to the community. Even if you speak another language and you speak English, show that card around so we can raise awareness about the fact that this is a law, this is required. So please do spread the word. The Rural Women's Health Project has a lot of information back there. We also have an upcoming interactive culinary experience facilitated by Flavorful, who you met, Aisse and Awa, coming up on June 24th from 4 to 6. If you want to sign up in the back by the Rural Women's Health Project, you can sign up for that. With this exhibit, I didn't give Valentina Niño enough credit. She is amazing. Please let's clap for her. She's the designer of the whole exhibit. And we will be facilitating a language access collage making workshop in July, which you can also get more information about from us, and we'll be spreading that word around, because the whole idea is for people to come to the Matheson, engage with the exhibit, and talk about all the different languages and where we come from. Okay. The collage making workshop is on July 15th at 4 p.m. I'm reading my notes to make sure I said everything. Okay, one more thing. There are these booklets back here in the by the exhibit that Valentina put together because we wanted to turn the exhibit into a scavenger hunt. You can pick up a booklet and answer the questions on the booklet and then turn them into Valentina or I, and you will be eligible to receive a prize from many of our immigrant-run businesses across the city. This is the booklet. So they're all back there. And Finally, we have been facilitating through Ginny and through the Rural Women's Health Project and Language Access Florida, Language Access Institutes, where organizations, if you are interested in getting more training around language access, we have Language Access Institutes coming up, starting with that collage making workshop. And I wanted to take a moment to recognize several people who have committed and shown their commitment to immigrant inclusion in the community by participating in the Language Access Institute. So I'll read your name. If you're here, please stand up. So we have Krista Ott from Community Resource Paramedicine Program. We have Michelle Ma from the UF Mobile Outreach Clinic. Barbara Huey Riordan from the Literacy Coordinator of Alachua County Library. And Veronica Robleto, Program Director and Legal Navigator for the Human Rights Coalition of Alachua County. Thank you so much. And finally, but definitely not least, we want to present an award to Caitlin Hof-Mahoney, who is the director of the museum, as well as to the Matheson Museum for their commitment to immigrant inclusion by funding this entire exhibit, funding the catering, being open to us being here today. So we wanted to thank you so much, Caitlin, and give you this award. Thank you. Right. Okay. Okay, everybody, please check out the exhibit. Please ask Valentina any questions. Please eat food if there's any left. Please drink wine. Anything else?
And if we could have all the speakers up front for a group photograph, we'd appreciate it very much. Thank you for being here.